Hello, and welcome to Kloeker's Education Foundation, providing quality content for amazing teachers and students. If you're joining us from a previous video or previous lesson, welcome back. And if this is your first time, we're glad you're here. This is our World History series, and this lesson is on ancient China's geography and the culture. Before we begin, don't forget to check out the link in the description below for a set of free guided notes for this lesson. Let's dive in. We have an essential question for this lesson to describe China's geography and give examples of how the Chinese adapted to overcome it and overcome their environment. So this lesson is broken up into three portions: the geography of China, the earliest dynasties, and the development of Chinese culture. So let's set the stage. China's civilization is going to develop after the ancient river valley civilizations, the Sumerians with Ur and Uruk and Urdu, the ancient Egyptians on the Nile with the Great Pyramids after the Indus River Valley civilization. But unlike those civilizations, the culture and development in China over 4,000 years ago is still going to be thriving to this day. Now let's talk about the geography of China. China is going to have many natural barriers that's going to protect the isolated civilization. To the east, there's the Yellow Sea, the East China Sea, the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles of water between them and any major threat. To the west, you have the Taklamakan Desert and thousands of miles of the plateau in Tibet. To the southwest, you have the mountain range of the Himalayas that are going to protect them and separate them from ancient India. And to the north, you have the Gobi Desert and the Mongolian Plateau. These mountain ranges and deserts are dominating most of China's landmass even to this day. Now, China is, of course, built on water like every ancient civilization with the ancient river valley. Now, the Huanghe, or the Yellow River in the north, is going to be the source of life for most of the ancient Chinese civilization. And it's called the Yellow River because of the yellowish silt called loess that is going to be deposited into the river from the deserts. As you can see, the Huanghe, the Yellow River, starts in central China, flowing through the Mongolian and the Gobi deserts, coming back down to the coast in northern China. Now, there's another major river in China known as the Yangtze River. This is in central China, flowing east from the China Sea, and it is the longest river in Asia, coming in at just under 4,000 miles long. Like every major river valley civilization, there are, of course, dangers and challenges with it. Disastrous floods in the Huanghe River Valley. Because they are so isolated, trade is difficult and people become self-reliant, self-dependent. But China will be invaded occasionally from outside sources. Now, from this map, you can see that most of the fertile farmland is located in the north and along the coast of China. Only about 10% of China's land is suitable for farming. Now, most of this is located in the North China Plain, which sits between the Yellow River and the Yangtze River. Now, you can see both of these ancient civilizations, which will develop right after each other, the Shang Dynasty and the Zhou Dynasty in China, sit between the Huanghe and the Yangtze River. Now, the development of culture is pretty unique in ancient China. Fossils show that modern humans lived there about 1.7 million years ago. And according to legend, the first Chinese dynasty, the Xia Dynasty, started around 2000 BC. The Chinese viewed everyone outside of their culture as barbarians and viewed themselves as the center of the civilized world, which makes sense because they are very isolated because of their geography. The Chinese name for China was the Middle Kingdom. Now, talking about the rise of Confucianism in our previous video, family and that filial piety is going to be very central to Chinese social development, respect for one's parents and one's elders. We will see that women are treated as inferiors compared to some of the other civilizations where women had more rights, and girls were often arranged to be married off between the ages of 13 and 16. When we talk about religion, we don't see as many large temples in ancient China like we do with the ziggurats in Mesopotamia or the Greek and Roman mythology. In China, we see more of a focus of honoring the spirits of ancestors who had the power to bring good fortune, although they're not seen as gods like some of the Greek mythological figures. We see the use of oracle bones where priests, religious figures scratch questions on bones, apply hot pokers to it to see how the bone cracks, and then interpret the cracks as a message from the spirits and the ancestors. Now, in China, there is no links between the spoken language and the written language. One could read Chinese without being able to speak Chinese in ancient China. And all parts of China learned the same system of writing, even if they spoke different languages. Therefore, writing and reading became more of a universal way to communicate. It was a unifying part of ancient Chinese civilization. However, it was much larger than the modern day English language. In ancient China, one would need to know around 1,500 characters to be considered literate, while scholars knew over 10,000 characters for Chinese writing. You might be thinking that 46,000 characters is a lot, and you would be correct. The modern English language has 26 letters in the alphabet and several dozen characters for grammar and punctuation. You can look at a keypad on a computer or your phone and just see that. But unlike ancient China, modern English, we put letters together to compose words. So to name the animal tiger, we would have a series of 5 letters, while in ancient China, you would have one character to call that animal. And so these characters have the English equivalent of words in many cases. Now, that's going to be a common unifying factor in ancient China, and one of the last of the ancient dynasties is going to be the Zhou dynasty, ruling in ancient China over on the east coast. You can see between the Huanghe and the Yangtze River. Now, the Zhou dynasty is going to overthrow the Shang dynasty, and they're culturally very similar. However, the Zhou dynasty is going to believe and kind of standardize the enforcement in what's known as the mandate of heaven, or divine approval to rule. And this mandate of heaven becomes central to the Chinese view of government, not just for these dynasties, but for future dynasties as well, starting the dynastic cycle, a pattern of rise, decline, and replacement of dynasties, especially if the spirits did not approve of one king's rule in that dynasty. And you can see here our graphic, the mandate of heaven. A new dynasty is born, a new emperor arrives and makes changes, and things work and get better for a little bit, and then the government becomes corrupt, normally by money and the excess greed of power. We see famine and natural disasters destroying the faith in the government. They become tired of all these problems, so they revolt because they've considered that the dynasty has lost the mandate of heaven. The emperor is defeated and a new one takes his place, and he comes in and makes all of these changes, and we start the cycle all over again. Now, the process of royal families controlling different regions is known as feudalism. We see it in ancient China. We see it in medieval Europe. Now, the Zhou dynasty is going to be known as innovators, improving the roads and canal system for transportation and trade within ancient China. They're going to coin money. They're going to create blast furnaces to refine metal for for both tools and for warring purposes, despite the fact that they were generally peaceful. Now, the last few years of the Zhou dynasty is known as the Warring States because of the attacks of nomads in ancient China and the greed for power from regional lords. And so you can see on the map a period of over 50 years. We have the decline of the Zhou dynasty with the different feudal lords in ancient China fighting over money and power and control of the region. And so we see China's culture is impacted in many ways by the geography that surrounds it. Now, this culture that begins with the Xia, the Shang, and the Zhou dynasty is one of the world's oldest and continuous cultures. These unique people will have life regularly disrupted by the rise and fall of governments in that dynastic cycle. So take a few moments now, and at the bottom of your notes, go ahead and answer the essential question for this lesson. Describe how China's geography impacted its culture and give examples of how the Chinese adapted to it. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our lesson. Thank you so much for watching. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check us out on Teachers Pay Teachers, YouTube, and Rumble, as well as the Kloeker Education Foundation website. We have a ton of resources for you there. To check out what's new and what's next in our series, click here. For something you might like, click below. And if you would like to subscribe to our channel, please click here to the right. All of this and more brought to you by the Kloeker Education Foundation. Thanks for watching.